Welcome to the Why of It All. Today we are excited to be joined by a special guest whose healing journey is nothing short of transformational, my friend Joe Rambo. For those of you who might be joining us from Joe's community, if it's the first time you're tuning in, we are honored to have you. And you've heard Joe speak about his past with authenticity and openness, but today we're going to invite Joe to go a little bit deeper and explore the truths that he had to face in his own personal journey. It seems that behind every researcher, every decoder, every relentless truth seeker is a human being who had to survive something really big. So that's what we're going to peel back the layers on today with Joe. To our regular listeners, today's conversation may introduce you to a voice that you've never heard before, but one whose journey echoes our core message that no matter how far you've fallen, healing is possible and your pain very likely holds the blueprint for your purpose. My friend Joe Rambo is known in the online truth community for his research and pattern recognition skills. But before all of that, he walked through the fire, addiction, incarceration, and loss. Joe was born into a middle-class, blue-collar family, but spent years battling addiction that led to jail, institutions, rehab, and even homelessness. In the depths of all of that struggle, he lost his son and cycled in and out of AA, all while navigating the grief of losing his father. But what followed is a redemption story, one marked by spiritual awakening, reclaiming his role as a father, becoming self-employed, and ultimately discovering a cause that he deeply believes in and a profound sense of purpose. So with all of that said, and without further ado, my friend, Joe Rambo.
Wow, I wasn't nervous until I heard all that.
I told you we do our homework.
Absolutely amazing introduction. I can't wait to do this with you. Thank you very much for having me.
We are honored to have you. We're really excited about this conversation.
Thanks for being here, Joe. Really, truly. Nice I'm ready to dig in. You ready to dig in?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Let's do it. So Melanie tells me you've been incredibly open about the darker parts of your past, addiction, incarceration, hitting rock bottom. But for those listeners that have never met you before or spoken to you, can you take us back to what life looked like before your healing journey began?
Yes. And you know what? So there is a lot of resentment for my childhood, but the truth is, if I'm really honest about it, my parents tried just as hard as they could. Uh, I was blue collar family. I was the oldest of three. I did have an older half sister that I didn't find out about until I was about 17 or 18 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so there was that dynamic. But my dad was a mechanic. My mom worked at a bank, and they did their very best to put us in the best school possible. Very good area right outside of Philadelphia,
Mhm.
and the rest was really kind of on me. I was a very attention-seeking, good athlete. I did okay with my grades because I was too busy trying to chase girls and be MVP on whatever sport it was that season. I played three sports a year, and for some reason, I just never felt comfortable inside, and I think that's why always seek that attention. And with that, as I got older, came parties, and then I always had to be the one to try whatever was next. And for some, you could have told me. It's funny how it kind of parallels what I do today, because we talk a lot about being shown, not told. And I had to. My whole life was that, right? You could tell me not to do something a million times, and I wasn't going to find that out until I did it on my own. Okay, so I moved on throughout high school with those insecurities and ended up, doing all the things I was told not to, smoking pot and drinking beer and cheating on girls. And I didn't cheat on girls because I was a bad person. I cheated on girls because I needed that validation. Something was missing within myself. And it wasn't so much later down the road that I figured out that was God. It took a very, very long, bumpy road between this period of time I'm telling you about and when I realized it was God that was missing. So I'm
Wow.
happy. Yeah.
Joe, I love that honesty and I love that vulnerability because you're just being honest. You're like, I cheated, but just being honest about the situation. And it sounds like you were like me as a teenager, just hard-headed. Were you just hard-headed?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I was so hard-headed.
Hard-headed is really funny. It's, what else is really funny? how you could be so cocky and insecure at the same time,
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
right? Like
Right.
I thought I ran the school, and really I was a scared little child at the same time.
Crazy.
It was so funny
Crazy.
to look
You know,
back.
and that's really interesting for me to hear because, this is something that Gina and I are both working through and we talk about very openly on this show is the insecurities coming from various traumatic experiences that put us into fight or flight mode for most of our lives
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
fear-based programming, right?
Mhm.
In I don't know about in your case, but in my case, there was no cockiness involved at all. It was just 100% pure insecurity and then the coping mechanisms to deal with that. So
Mhm.
this is really interesting to hear you talk about how you kind of flipped that for you, but I love that you are aware of it and you're able to self-reflect and then communicate it so clearly. That's interesting.
Mhm.
I just wish I knew it then. I wish
Yeah.
it didn't take it to my 40s to figure that out, but yeah.
I well,
That's the journey though, right? That's the journey. That's what this is all about is that process of becoming self-aware and then doing the self-reflection and it's from that that we begin the healing process.
but Joe, that brings me to my next question. This is perfect. Perfect segue. So what was your personal breaking point? That moment, like when you knew something had to change. When did that happen? What did that look like for you?
Oh man. Do you know how many times I had that breaking point? They make jokes about, you got to hit rock bottom, and then rock bottom at the trap door, and then in there you'll find that there's a basement. I couldn't tell you how many times I bounced my face off the concrete. And every single time I knew that I had to change something. And
Mm,
every single time I was brought to my knees, I tried to change something. And for a very long period of time in my life, it was like I couldn't control it. Like there was
mm.
someone else in my head. I guess I need to give just a little background so people can comprehend what I'm saying.
Yeah, we might have quite a few listeners here who don't actually know the backstory of what you went through.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the brief version of the escalation of what became a very dark period of my life was, like I said, parties in high school. Um,
Mhm.
I grew up in the 90s. I graduated 2000. So we're talking about the era of, ecstasy, cocaine,
Mhm. Mhm.
Percocet, Oxycontin.
Mhm.
And so in that era, when you went to parties and you started to push the limits and you had to find out what was next, those were the things I ended up doing. And so I
Mhm.
ended up in, warehouse clubs that were illegally held in Philadelphia. I ended up in North Philly, which is zombie land still today, for anybody that's
Mm,
unaware. And that is no exaggeration. North
Mm.
wow.
Philadelphia, one of the scariest places I've ever been, and it's still that way right now. Um, and so, you start by drinking and smoking weed, and then you graduate to these heavier drugs like the ones I just listed. And then, you always have a line that you won't cross in your head. And then somehow you always cross it, right? So you put
Mhm.
this expectation where, like, I won't go past that line. And then you do. And I won't go past that line. And then you do. And so eventually, I ended up with a needle in my arm.
Wow.
And
Mm.
I swore that would never happen. And it did. And
Mhm.
with that came, lots of times that I smashed my face off the concrete, as I said before. And with that came overdoses. I've actually been Narcaned 8 times to bring me back to life. And so
Wow.
I've been to rehab 5 times. I've, been to jail. I couldn't tell you. Kind of lost count.
Mhm. Mhm.
Nothing ever really serious, mostly just skid bids. I wasn't like, a dangerous, violent criminal. I was a lost drug addict, right? So, luckily, I didn't cross any of those lines where I got myself in real trouble. But to be honest with you, if I'd have gotten caught for everything I did, I'd probably be in prison for the rest of my life. That's the
Wow.
truth. So
Mhm.
God looked out in some ways, and I learned my lesson, and thank God I'm being used in a different way today. But to go back to your question, there was a you know thousands of times where I realized. Let me give you just a quick story. I got
Mhm.
out of rehab one day, like maybe my third or fourth rehab. I
Okay.
got out of rehab 28 days, and I went to a movie with what was the girlfriend at the time, and she told me she'd stick with me one time. She said if I screwed up again, it was over. Okay,
Mhm.
very good girl. Uh, Still have love for her to this day, and we're talking about 25 years ago.
Mhm.
Uh, we went and saw a movie, and it was that American Gangster.
Mm.
So I go to rehab for 28 days and I get out, and the first thing we do on a Sunday is go see a movie. Now, we don't know what movie we're seeing. We just know this is the one that's at the top of the thing. So we go to see American Gangster. Well, it's literally about heroin, Blue
Mhm.
Magic, way that knows the movie. And so we sit through this movie, and I mean, it's a graphic movie for somebody that just got out of rehab, 28 days for heroin. It was a
Yeah.
horrible idea. And so she takes me home and she drops me off after the movie. It was very awkward. And that other side of my brain just felt so activated, and so much
Mhm.
so that I was literally in tears fighting the thoughts in my own head.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
would be winning, "No, you're good. You got this. You just did what you did." And then I would start losing, like, your phone still has phone numbers in it. And so
Mm.
eventually I got to the point where I was literally calling a drug dealer and driving myself with what is probably a 40-minute drive all the way to the spot in Philadelphia from, you know, the county just outside of Philly to north side of Philadelphia. And I would pull up to the spot and tell them I'm here. And then I would start crying my eyes out and drive away. And I would get
Oh.
like 3/4 of a mile to a mile, and I would turn around and go back.
Mm.
And I would wait, and I'd hold on to my steering wheel, and I would start crying again and drive away.
Wow.
It was I don't know how to explain to people what it
Yeah.
feels like to legitimately have two entities inside your own head.
Mhm.
And so I failed that day. I
Wow.
failed horribly,
Mhm.
and I lost that girl. And it was just one of many stories I could tell you about the
Mhm.
losses. I don't know how to answer. I do know there was a time where it finally something happened.
Mhm.
So, but the original question, many
Mm.
times, many times.
Can I ask you, I know that, and I mentioned this when I was introducing you. I know that somewhere along the lines in this story, you lost your son, you lost your father. Can you kind of touch on where that all fit in and how that affected you during that time?
Mhm.
So my son is I'll start there because they are definitely two separate stories.
Mhm.
Uh as far as my son is concerned, the mother of my son, the birther person, her and I met in AA, and it was very early on in my process. He's 14 now. Lost him when he was 2. Um, it was towards the end, but it was one of my last failures, like the one I just told you about previously. And so I was living in a house, and we had used up every resource possible. I was no longer working. I had even recently robbed a drug dealer. Like
Mm.
it was just a really really dark time, and I had one of those moments of clarity, and so I honestly called my best friend at the time, and I said, "Bro, I need help, man. Like, I need help. I got a 2-year-old kid here. I got a girl that um, is no better than I am,
Mm.
and we have no idea what." And so that friend also called my mom just to get everybody kind of involved in the thing, and my mom took over. She got in her car. She drove 2 hours. She took my kid from me. She told me I wouldn't get help unless I signed over rights. And if I would sign over rights, she would then take me to rehab or whatever. Now, this wasn't the first time I had failed. This was long
Mm.
down the road of failures. So at the time, I wasn't mad at her at all. I thought she was helping me. I
Mhm.
signed my rights away, and what I ended up with was full financial responsibility, and she got full physical custody. No one ever thought that I was gonna come out of this. So again, I try not to be resentful about that, but I was tricked.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
was
Mm.
never I was never going to I was never gonna succeed in anyone's eyes at that point, and so they made sure that I couldn't.
Mm.
And then I did. And so I spent the next 10 years fighting to get him back because like I don't know if that was the moment or the second story you want to talk about with my dad or the combination probably was
Mm,
the moment because not having my son, look, I wasn't perfect from when I lost him until I got him. There was still
mhm,
a process, and I think that process kind of ended with the story with my father. So the very quick version of that one, as many people have heard this one, um, I was in the process of doing what they talk about in AA, where you make amends. And so I was running around trying to clean up all of the wreckage of my past, whether it be personal or legal. And
mhm,
so legal stuff just happens to be this example. And I walked into a courthouse in Media, uh, right outside of Philadelphia, with a handful of friends that took the train with me to go take care of this. And when I walked in, I was put directly into handcuffs. So when you
mm,
walk into a house and they know you're coming, they have already checked your background to look for warrants, etc. And so it ends up I had a warrant in Portland, Oregon.
mm.
Whole nother part of my story that would take another 3 hours. But
Mm.
I ran from my problems a lot, so I ended up all over the country. Anytime it would get bad enough, it was either rehab or I would run somewhere else. Right? I was very good at going somewhere and trying to start over with good intentions and then failing. Right? So Portland was one
Mhm,
of them. And so I ended up getting a charge in Portland. And when I was going to clean up the wreckage of my past in literally the other coast, they arrest me on this warrant, and they have 90 days to tell you whether or not you are going to get extradited. If they don't pick you up in 90 days, then they release you. But that's the rules. Well, on day 89, Portland decided to send for me. So I ended up
mm.
spending 7 weeks, 7 jails, 3 airplanes in federal custody to get extradited from Philadelphia to Portland, Oregon, Clackamas County specifically.
Wow.
And so once I got there, I only owed Portland 7 days in jail, something like that, 7-11, something like that. Yeah, that's it.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
and you know what's funny? Liberal policies, which is kind of like against what I do for a living, ended up getting all of those charges wiped out because Portland changed the laws after that, and they became very liberal. And what I did wasn't even against the law, so it's not even on my record anymore. Like I'm out here telling a story to people
Wow.
that isn't even there anymore. It's gone.
Mhm,
It's the
mm.
yeah, it's the only felony I was ever charged with, and it's not even on my record anymore.
Wow.
Uh, anyway, so I was giving Portland their last few days, and I get a phone call in from that same best friend I told you I called earlier, and I've never gotten a phone call into jail. It was really weird, and so I was already like taken aback, and
Mhm.
I'd already been in there for 7 weeks, so I was like in pretty good shape. I was working out every day. I was eating healthy. I was already clean when I went in there. Um, and that buddy tells me that he can't tell me what's going on, but he's scheduled a time to talk with my brother the next day, and to call them at a specific time, and he'd put it on 3-way, and we would discuss something. And so I was kind of upset, but I went to bed in my cell that night, and I woke up and I went out to the phone and I made the phone call at the agreed upon time, and my brother tells me that dad's not doing well, and
Mm.
it's not looking good.
Mm.
And so we agree to talk the same time the next day. And when I call the next day, he tells me dad didn't make it.
Oh,
And
Mm.
the truth is, I put that guy, my hero, through hell. And I was in jail 3,000 miles away
yeah.
when he died. And so,
You're making me cry.
yeah, it was, it was, I don't have my son and I let down my dad. And I'm supposed to be a man, and that's not what men do. And so, I talked to the judge. My judge was to see me the next day, and I explained him the whole story and getting, extradited across the country, and I told him it's no fault of theirs. It was completely my fault. But I told him what happened with my father, and I just asked if I could go to his funeral. If I could, you know, I only owed them 7 days. I had already given them 7 days, or I'm sorry, I think I owed them another 7 days. Sorry, it's a long time ago. So I owed them another 7 days. But I had to explain to them, like, I just got extradited. I just spent 7 weeks in jail, and the DA didn't want to give me that time. They weren't going to count it until I walked in their door. So the extradition time wasn't going to be counted at all. And so I pleaded to the judge to please take that into account. I just want to make it to my dad's funeral. Anyway, long story short, the judge did let me out.
Mm.
And I ended up having to sleep on the streets of Portland for 3 days because they did it on a Friday night, and I wasn't allowed to leave until I reported to the probation office.
Mm.
So I slept on the street in Portland for 3 days, and I went to that probation office, and it was a nightmare. But to keep it, short, they ended up letting me go home, and I flew into. Actually, I can't skip this part of the party story. I have to tell you this.
Please.
Please.
I went. Okay, so that best friend I talked about, he has already
Mhm.
spent probably 10 grand trying to help me. And when I needed to come home to my dad's funeral, he told me he could own. So probation told me I had a pass, so I could go to Philly to the funeral. I had to return the next week because I owed them probation and a bunch of other stuff. And so Marco was. I had no money at all, and Marco he said I can only afford to get you one way. And he said, "Do you want to get extradited again?" I had nobody else left on the planet but this guy. Okay. And he said, "Do you want to get extradited again?" He said, "What would your dad want you to do?" And so I had to make this choice to not go home because I
Mm.
didn't have resources, and I knew I was going to get extradited again, and I didn't want to spend 7 more weeks in the feds.
Yeah.
And so I sat on the curb outside the probation office for a full day. And I told the lady when she finally came out and saw me that I said, I can't go home. And she said, "Go home." Didn't understand. So anyway, I went into Portland for that weekend, and I met some people at an AA meeting because that's where I went. And this homeless guy, he showed me where I could sleep, and he also showed me where I could potentially get some help. So I sat in this office in Portland, which, again, look, when you're in these positions, some of these liberal policies will save your life, and this is one of them. I
Mhm.
sat in this office building, and I signed up to talk to these people because I found out about a program called a Ticket Home. And
Mm.
basically, if you're homeless or transient, they will, and they can find a good address for you. Somebody will confirm. They will literally send you there. And so I sat there in their office for like 12 hours, and I get called back. Excuse me. And this lady, she must have been, in my head, she was like 6'4". She was like 300 pounds. That she had this huge lion's mane, a black lady named Miss Precious. And Miss Precious sat me in her office, and I just told her basically the same story I just told you guys. And she's crying. And so she calls that buddy Marco, and she confirms an address, and she buys me a plane ticket on her computer. Now, you gotta understand, my dad's funeral is literally in like 8 hours.
Ah.
And I'm on foot with
Yeah.
bleeding feet because I'm wearing jail clothes still. They had left all my property in Philadelphia. So she takes and tells me that I can't tell anyone what she's about to do because it'll get her in trouble. But she told me to walk out the doors and walk up to the stop sign. She took her lunch break and went to the parking garage, got her car, picked me up on the corner, and drove me to the airport, walked me through security because all I had was jail ID, gave me $20 so that I could eat, and got me on the plane. The plane landed in Baltimore. Marco picked me up. We stopped at a Goodwill and bought a suit for like $11, and I made it to my dad's funeral that day.
Mm.
I've called Miss Precious 3 times since then just to tell her, like, keep her updated on how I'm doing.
It sounds like God sent you a lifeline.
Yeah,
An angel.
it
Sounds
was
like an
crazy.
angel.
Was this well, I'm kinda skipping ahead, I guess, a little bit, but had you had your spiritual awakening by this point?
I think I was
Had
living
you
it.
met God by then?
Okay, so I went to Sunday school as a kid. I always was aware, like I was always told God was there, right? But I
Mhm.
had to be shown, and
Mm,
so it was moments like that where I was shown.
Mhm.
I always
Yeah.
knew God was there. I had moments where I would take suggestion in AA or in rehab, and I would feel presence. I would start to build a relationship, and that other
Mhm.
side of my head or whatever, I'd get distracted and squirrel off and
Mhm.
end up having to learn the hard way. And it was those moments like that one I'm talking about with my dad where I was definitely shown. And it was those moments where I started to build a relationship and then get more consistent in prayer and understand
Mhm.
that I was never on my own.
yeah.
There's
That's right.
So from that point forward, you made it to your dad's funeral. Was there a big shift at that point? Like, where did things really, really, really turn around for you?
no, honestly, it was never like that was the biggest moment. The rest it took faith, it took hard work, it took still failing a few times.
Mhm,
It
Mhm.
took the worst jobs on the planet. Like, I did some of
Mhm.
the worst jobs for very little money. Um, it was never like, "Hey, like, you won the lottery. Now life's good." No, that's
Mhm.
not how it
mm,
went ever. No, it was a lot of hard work. It was learning to think of others rather than myself. It was
Mhm.
when I was stuck sitting in my own crap, um, finding someone else to help and realizing that holy moly, that is what I'm here for, not to just sit here and think about myself. And
Mhm.
it was those things that, and I didn't learn that even on my own. I was taught that by other guys that did it before me, like the one I keep talking about, Marco.
Mhm.
So there was never an aha moment where like boom, magic, my life is fixed. It's
Mhm.
just been a slow progression of waking up every day and trying to do the next right thing and putting one foot in
Mhm.
front of the other.
At the why of it all, we are passionate about healing mind, spirit, and body. And that's why we're proud to be sponsored by a brand whose passion for wellness runs as deep as ours, Tulip Blooms. Tulip Blooms is a family owned American small business that crafts premium skincare products such as decadent lotions, body butters, facial serums, artisan soaps, and more. Today we want to highlight Castor Blend, a modern twist on an ancient remedy. Castor oil has been revered for centuries in cultures around the world for its deeply nourishing and restorative qualities. Tulip Blooms has taken the healing power of cold pressed castor oil and combined it with lighter, deeply nourishing oils like sea buckthorn, apricot, and amaranth to create a silky golden serum that glides on smoothly and absorbs beautifully. This unique blend is a multi purpose powerhouse designed to hydrate skin, soften rough patches, and balance the scalp, leaving your skin and hair feeling cared for, resilient, and rejuvenated. And it's one of our favorite products that we use every night. Castor Blend is handmade in small batches with pure cold pressed oils, no fillers, preservatives, or synthetic additives. So, whether you're using it on your scalp, cuticles, or even dry elbows, you're treating your skin to the best nature has to offer. Plus, it's gentle enough for even the most sensitive skin. No irritation, just smooth, moisturized comfort. Whether you're looking to hydrate, heal, or just show your body a little more love, Tulip Blooms delivers high vibe care that you can feel good about because it's skincare rooted in nature, backed by integrity, and made with intention. Visit tulipblooms.shop and use our exclusive promo code HEAL, that's HEAL, at checkout for 10% off your order.
And it's not been perfect. It's been life. But holy
I ha
crap, I'm a long way. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I have a question just because, I want to know just out of pure curiosity, did you grow up in a religious household? Did you grow up always in an environment where, your parents went to church or they talked about God? Like, how did you grow up spiritually? Or did you even have any spiritual guidance when you were younger?
No, uh, we had a Presbyterian church that my mom would take us to once in a while when we were little, and that
Mhm.
kinda ended. My dad was never really religious at all.
Mhm.
Um, my grandmother was, right? So, like, there was very little influence, but it was there. Never to the point where I wouldn't have heard it anyway. I wouldn't have heard it
Mhm.
anyway, even if they made me
Mhm.
go.
Mhm.
I just looking back, I realized that I had to learn the way I did.
Mhm.
Uh, I wish all those things didn't happen, but I know that it had to,
Mhm.
or I'd have never grown to where I am today. So yeah, the religion was there, but it never took hold.
Mhm.
I never listened, and it was never forced either. So
Mhm. Mhm. This is a perfect segue to this question, but like now, how long have you been sober?
all right. So the truth is, I don't actually consider myself to be sober today. So
Okay.
we're
Okay.
Hmm.
talking about a very long period of time. So like if we go
Yeah.
to stuff like that, I will at this point in my life have a drink. I don't like to lie about that. But
Mhm.
I haven't done drugs in a very, very long time. I won't smoke pot
Years
either.
and years.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, very long time.
It's a
Okay.
slippery slope, I think, with a background like yours. So
Yeah.
respect for being willing
Mhm.
to abstain entirely
Mhm.
from drugs.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Uh, so Joe, were there any like if you think back, were there any like practices, tools, or like mindset shifts that helped you stay anchored during this healing journey, even during those hardest moments? Like, were there any? Was it prayer? Was it journaling? Was it having good friends around you? Like, did you have? Were there any like tools that you had in your toolbox or shifting? You know that.
Or sheer force of will.
Well, that never worked for me. Never. I tried to will myself into getting clean and sober for decades. That didn't work.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I think for me, people that know the rooms in AA and stuff, they're not going to like this answer. But I have to be honest. I I don't know how to explain what happened. So I had a very long time in AA. I've gotten a year sober many times. I
Mhm.
have been through the 12 steps many times. I've taken guys through the 12 steps many times. I've
Mm.
had sponsees pass away. I've had friends, most of my friends are dead that I
Mm.
hung out with in those periods of time. Um, I was given all of the tools in the toolbox by guys that did it before me. I tried to pass those tools on. Uh, I still ended up struggling every time until I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was the prayer. I don't know if it was the trying to think of others rather than myself. For me, it was never like it happened, except for that one day the other voice in my head was just gone. And I
Mm.
Mm.
don't know why.
So the newer voice got louder than the older voice, basically.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
the other one started to dampen.
okay, this is probably the best way I can describe it. I used to remember my dad looking at me with tears in his eyes, and I've only seen the man cry like 3 times in my whole
Mhm.
life. And he looked at me with tears one time, and he's like, "Just put it down. Like, just stop, asshole." Excuse my language. But he's like, "What are you?" He's like, "What are you doing? Just stop." And I
Mm.
and I and I looked at him like, "I want to. I wish I knew how." And he looked at me like with disgust. Felt. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if it's age or experience or everything that I went through. But one day I just woke up and I just looked at it all like, that's disgusting.
Hmm.
It's gross.
Mm.
Something happened in my head. And I don't know why it took till I was in my 30s for that to happen, but it
Mm.
did. And all of a sudden it was just like very everything about it that drew me towards it had flipped on its head and it became very gross and disgusting. And so I try to have compassion for the people that are still in it because I now look at it differently, not the same way
Mm.
my father never had those problems. But still I look at it like I recoil now. And I guess it had to be God. It's the only thing. I don't know how else to explain it. And I
Mhm.
know people aren't gonna like that. I know people that have been through AA aren't going to understand that. And I know
Mhm.
they're not going to understand that I said that now I have a drink, years after that.
Mhm.
But I really truly don't like, I don't even recognize that dude I just told you all the stories about anymore. It's just not who I am.
Yeah. It's we had a question lined up about rebuilding your identity, but you sort of already just touched on that. And it sounds
Mhm.
like, healing from addiction and incarceration isn't just about getting clean, it's about rebuilding that identity. And I think in some people's cases, there's a leap involved. There's some profound something that happens, but it sounds like what I'm hearing for you is that rebuilding your identity was a slow process.
Well, so maybe this might be part of my story that I don't really realize. When my dad died
Mhm.
in that hospital room and I wasn't there, I heard
Mhm.
from my brother and the older half sister I told you about that
Mhm.
his dying wish was that everybody go vote for Donald Trump.
I've heard you tell that
Oh,
before, yeah.
really?
And so this was 2015. And so I was very confused by that because I just didn't understand. Now, my dad was an ex-Vietnam vet. He was,
Mhm.
the guy that went down and cooked breakfast on Sundays
Mhm.
at the VFW. He never really took any accolades or was recognized. Anytime, you go to an event and they're like, they want the veterans to stand up so we can all clap and say thank you. My dad would never stand, and I didn't understand that. He never really talked about his time in Vietnam, which I think is pretty normal for guys that have been through it. They weren't
Mhm.
really accepted well when they came home. There was a lot of turmoil in the country at the time, so I never really pushed him on it. Um, but I did know that there was a background there where he was patriotic, where um, I looked up to him for that, where I think he believed in his country. And when he said that, and I wasn't there, I think I subconsciously made it my mission to try to figure out why, because I had so much guilt, shame, and remorse for, first of all, not being there, and second of all, letting him down for so many years.
Mhm.
And so it kind of sent me on this journey. And, they can say you can like replace one addiction with another, right? People do it with drugs or sex, or
Mhm.
I think that moment might have been part of what happened because my whole life became trying to figure out why. And the more I looked and found out, the more I wanted to know more. And the more I would research more and try to reach out to these people that I was finding online, these people that I looked up to because they seemed to know so much about what my dad had suggested or asked everyone to go do. And so the further we got into this process and the more people I got to meet and the more research I did, the more I kind of just felt like I was on my dad's mission. And
Mm.
so it really truly, I mean, I'm now sitting in a studio. I podcast this stuff. Like it really kind of sent me on this path.
Wow.
Uh yeah, it's crazy. So I don't know if maybe I replaced all the obsessive
Mhm.
compulsive stuff that I was doing in an unhealthy way with what I do now, but maybe it feels that way a little bit.
Mm.
I I feel like that's exactly what you did, and,
Yeah.
what a beautiful story. What a beautiful like, that pain that brought your purpose, it brought you so much purpose, and even though it was so painful and it was such a hard time, it's what catapulted to what you do today, correct?
Yeah, it's absolutely what happened.
And that's what we talk about on this show is how the things that nearly break us are often the things that birth our purpose. So do
Yes.
you feel like your past and the pain that you went through kind of gave you the sacred training for the work that you do now? Like, do you feel like any of the traumas and the things that you went through provided the baseline way that you think, the way that you move through things, the core skill sets that allows you to do the work that you do now?
I think that is a great question, and I absolutely have an answer for it. Look, so everybody in the movement, quote unquote movement that I've met seems to
Mhm.
have some sort of specialty, something that they're most passionate about, right? So that we
Mhm.
have people out here that are fighting for children, fighting for healthcare. Some fight the school system. Some, everybody's got something. There's 100%. it's literally influenced what I'm most passionate about. And it's why I'm so honest about my background, because I know I'm not the only one out here that's been through addiction issues or abuse or had to lean on liberal policies like I talked about.
Yeah. I was really surprised to hear you say that, but it's wow, what a well-rounded point of view to have.
Right. So,
Mhm.
homelessness is an issue. It sent me down rabbit holes where I found out, that our own three-letter agencies were protecting poppy fields in Afghanistan. That, the crack epidemic was literally brought in by our own government. So some of these rabbit holes, I've loved sharing with other people to bring awareness. I would love to eradicate drug addiction in this country. And it's a huge problem. To be honest with you, if you were to get rid of the drugs, which a very large portion was brought in by our own government, many of the other issues just go away.
Mm.
Prostitution, child and human trafficking, it gets chopped significantly if you are able to handle the drug addiction issues and the drugs being brought into this country. Donald Trump's talked about it many times. I mean, I honestly, I love the quick trial idea and death penalty. Once if you're doing something that's to an absurd level, I see no problem with that. These drug dealers are killing. I'm not getting rid of my responsibility for my actions. However, there's another side to it, and these people, some of which are supposed to be on our side, are bringing these drugs in, allowing these things to happen. And then some of the liberal policies are there to catch people because of the liberal policies that put them there. The reason I no longer have charges is because Portland basically legalized drugs. And so what was
Wow.
on my jacket was no longer there because it was no longer a crime. Well, now they
Mm.
need liberal policies to catch these people because they're giving them clean places and needles to shoot heroin. And they're failing miserably. It's destroying their cities. So it's like a weird cycle. And I got caught in there somewhere in the middle, and I gained this education where, sure, I love talking about everyone's passions on my show, but that is mine. So the answer to your question is yes, absolutely.
Yeah. These are, this world that you're in, the community is we're talking about these heavy, heavy topics day in and day out because it's important and they're things that we care about. How do you balance the emotional toll of holding these heavy truths with the need for you to stay grounded and whole? Do you have any daily practices or inner check-ins, or what do you do, Joe, to keep yourself balanced, primed, and ready to take on the challenges of being a voice in this movement and holding those heavy truths?
I, I'm a, I'm a I'm a type of guy that laughs so he doesn't cry. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, for anybody that has watched my show, and I hope if you haven't, you will, I try to laugh through it all. Like I try to find the positive and the funny and the absurd and turn it into something fun to experience for me, for my guests, and for my audience. So I could be in a hailstorm and I would find something positive about it. So I think that that's just in my nature. When you've kind of been to the gates of hell and back, you're just full of gratitude. So um, you know, I think my show is kind of like that meme where, like you've normal people that are like freaking out, and then you have MAGA that's screaming, and the guy in the back sitting there smiling, like, we're gonna be okay, guys, chill out.
Yeah.
That, that's kind of who I am. I think because of the process I've been through.
I was telling Gina before we started recording, I was like, oh man, if we can get Joe laughing, that'd be great because Joe's got the best laugh ever. And your laugh is so contagious. I know that, I'm part of your audience. So I know that the audience absolutely loves that about you because you create a lightness around otherwise heavy subjects. And that's one of the reasons why we show up and tune in is because of the hope and the fortification that provides.
Well, I love that. That is a huge compliment. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We're going to lighten things up for just a minute, but we can go back. But yesterday, Melanie and I were recording a podcast and we did this lightning round, the speed round. And so I want to know your answer to this. Okay. It's one or the other. Okay.
Yes.
This is good, right? All right. Joe, Crocs or jail?
Pick one.
Pick one.
Crocs, like the shoes?
shoes or jail? Which one?
I've worn Crocs in jail, so I'm gonna choose Crocs.
Yes. Yes. See, he's my dude. He's my dude.
My answer was jail, but to be fair, I have no experience with jail.
Yeah, that's it.
I just thought you would have a better perspective. Like I roll up into Melanie's house in these platform Crocs, and she's like, "What are you wearing?" She's like, "What the hell are you wearing?" And I'm like, "Dude, don't clown on my Crocs, okay? Give me a break." So anyway, I'm sorry. I had to
Great.
ask you.
That was
No,
great. I
they
love
actually
it. Well
do.
played.
There are jails around that literally issue, and I'm pretty sure they're not name brand, but they're Crocs, and they're
Oh
bright
my
orange.
God. That is amazing. I didn't expect that answer, but that was awesome.
That was good. That was good. Way to
funny,
tie in. Yes.
Yeah, you choose jail, and then you get there, and they make you wear Crocs.
You get both. I thought it was going to be a one answer question, but it was both, and I didn't see that coming at
So
all.
you go to jail and you have to wear Crocs anyway.
I'm not doing
Melanie.
it. No, I'll just walk barefoot, tetanus or whatever and all. I don't care.
Don't do that in the shower.
Oh, that's
that was
funny. That was good.
So Joe,
All right.
what is your why? Like this show is called The Why of It All.
Yeah.
As of this point, what is your why? What is the deeper reason that you keep showing up and sharing even when it's hard?
Community.
Mm.
I mean, well, look, the answer is always God first. So I'm already giving gratitude to God.
Amen.
On a human level, for me, it's community. There's a, where we go one, we go all concept that I've learned about with a lot of the things that I study, and that is why I do this now. Going to events and getting hugs and taking pictures and seeing that there's so many people out here that are passionate about so many things, and the main goals seem to be the same. Being able to leave a republic for our kids, which was the same one that our forefathers tried to lay out before us, attempting to change or correct the course that this country's been on. And like I said, everybody's got passions in so many different directions that none of us could do it alone. It's the collective getting together part that I truly love about this.
It's what keeps you going.
Yeah. And every day I think it's like God's been answering prayers, because every day my show seems to grow more, and with community building being my main goal, every day I've been blessed that it just becomes a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger, and I love that.
That's got to be a great feeling. It's funny because our following is not as big yet as yours, but I go on a check Instagram and we got like 92 followers now for The Why of It All, and I'm like, yes, like 92 people are actually following us on.
Every account starts at zero. Every account.
We all
starts
start
at
at zero.
That's what I say. You got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to say, I want to take this moment, Joe, to thank you for being the inspiration that you are. I got to echo your sentiment that for me, finding this community that you and I are a part of, especially, has been absolutely life altering for me. But even more so, folks like you and our other friends who have their own shows, and seeing you guys have the courage to step up and be authentic and have the courage to use your voice and be seen in the way that you do. And especially because you guys are talking about very, very controversial issues, and your courage and willingness to do that, and especially in your case, the authenticity and the vulnerability that you are fully willing to step into, has been so inspiring for me. And in part, it's guys like you that have given us the inspiration to do what we do.
That's funny. We must be besties, because I was going to say the same exact thing. The only difference is that I don't know you as well, Joe, but just having this last hour with you and listening to you, I mean, I was in tears.
I told you he was amazing.
I was in tears. And so, I mean, this has just been such an inspirational hour with you, and just listening and hearing your story and this triumph that you've found. And it really gives me shivers. It's awesome. What's one thing that you hope that our listeners will take away when everybody listens to this story, especially those maybe who feel stuck in their own patterns or pain? What's the one thing you hope that somebody listening to you today will take away from this conversation?
That you can make anything positive. You can find motivation in anything, whether it be pain, resentment, joy, heartache. There can be motivation found in anything when you give those emotions to God.
Mm.
So like there's even a part, and I'll be quick on this one,
Take your time.
but
Take your time.
there's huge resentment towards my mother. She tried to keep my son from me for a long time, and this is a part of the story I don't typically talk about, although it did come up a couple years back. The
Mhm,
reason my son's back with me now is because my mom's accused of abusing him.
Mm.
And
mhm,
so at the end of this summer, I think we're finally going to get to court. It's been 3 years now. He's actually only in my custody through a PFA. But when you asked that question, it brought up the idea that I, I am also motivated by resentment because
Mm.
she made fun of me.
mhm,
And she
mhm.
made fun of me through COVID. Oh, where'd you find that out, Rumble? Well, now I make my living on Rumble.
Right?
When I when I screamed that she was abusing us as kids, everyone laughed at me. Everybody looked the other way. He's just a troubled kid. Well, now she's accused of abusing my son, and I
Mm,
had nothing to do with that.
mm,
And so I give that example because of my answer. You can find motivation in anything. And so even if it's just for me, right? I don't call her to rub it in or whatever.
mhm,
But, but I found motivation in that resentment. I find motivation in community. I try to find motivation in anything that I go through. It's not easy to try to now father my kid alone and
mhm,
not having him for 10 years. Like I have to
mm.
try to register him in school, and there's all these things that like I have to adult now.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really it's not easy. It's really not.
No.
It's
No.
stressful anyway, I should say. And so now I'm trying to just do all those things, and I find motivation in, okay, my dad worked his ass off for me. I
Mhm,
let him down, and I wasn't there for my son, even though I did try for most of
mhm,
it. But now's the time. So I find
mhm,
motivation in that. Well, I owe him a lot. So let's go. Let's get it. Right. You can find
mhm.
motivation if you look.
Sounds like you are on a mission to prove what you are actually capable of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't really want to go back and rub it in everyone else's face. It's more for me. Like
Mhm,
because so many people looked at me like they were disgust or they were let down or they were hurt or, F that guy, or they just would forget about me. And and so I'm just on this mission to prove that I'm not, you don't have to okay, they can feel that way. I deserve that, but I'm not that guy. So
mhm,
let's do whatever's next.
You talked about the awareness of when you were, in your childhood or your youth. You have this awareness that there was an insecurity underlying the cockiness.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, us two here, we are actively, intentionally moving through our own insecurities every day, challenging those parts of
mhm,
ourselves, loving the parts of ourselves that were wounded, where the insecurities came from, so
mhm,
that we can grow into the greatest versions of who we truly are. And what I'm hearing is that's essentially what you're doing. You are making conscious choices to grow into the greatest version of Joe and overcoming all of that stuff from the past. It's so inspiring, Joe.
Yeah. I appreciate that. It's
Mhm.
I found there is an adult version that I go through because when we go to these events, and I hope this comes off the way that I mean it. But all of a sudden, like all these people are aware of who you are because of the show you do. So people come and they want to talk and they want to take pictures, and I do get very nervous in those.
mhm.
It's easy to talk to my computer screen and deal with the chat. It's a little bit more difficult face to face when there's a lot of people that want to talk and stuff. I'm super grateful for it. It's just a little scary,
It's
right?
nerve-wracking. Yeah, has to be.
Do you let yourself soak it in?
Uh, Not as well as some of my friends do. I think I look up to Dave. He's very good at it. I get nervous. I get a
Mhm,
little introverted. I
mhm,
think,
mhm,
the- but but I love this and I love the community. So I'm just trying to one foot in front of the other and
mhm.
continue to get used to it. I guess I hope to get used to it.
Yeah.
I'm
Mhm.
having the time of my life doing this. So I hope it
It's
never
awesome.
ends. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Keep going.
you're doing great. Is there
Mhm.
anything else you want to touch on, Joe?
No, no, I'm super grateful for your time. I
Mm.
please send me this link so I can share it out, and any
Oh
others
yeah.
too. I love
Oh,
supporting other people in the movement.
thank
So
you.
you have my number, Melanie. Text me when you have shows important because I'll share it out on X. I'm super grateful that you guys have me on. Thank you.
Absolutely. Why don't you tell everybody where to find you?
Mhm.
It is at brainstorm_Joe on X is my largest account. I love X. I kind of got back on there when Elon opened the floodgates of being able to say almost free speech, instead
Mhm.
of kicking people off. So I took advantage of that opportunity, and that's kind of where I built what I look at as the battlefield, also the commercial for my podcast, which is my true passion. And that would be, you can find that on 3 different platforms. I do stream to X, I stream to Rumble, and I also stream to pill.net. I'm hoping to expand that here shortly, but Rumble would be the primary platform, and that's Rambo and Friends. Friends is spelled Frens. It's a Pepe the Frog reference.
Of course. And we'll make sure to put all that contact information in the show description for everybody so they can find you.
Mhm.
This has been so amazing, Joe. Like I knew it was going to be good, but like even better than I
Truly.
knew it would be. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for your willingness to
you.
be here and share your story and share your heart and be so open and vulnerable with us. I
Mhm.
hope that this has been inspiring for everyone. It certainly has been
Oh,
inspiring for
yes.
me.
For sure.
Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah. So everybody, if you guys enjoyed this, do us a big favor and hit that positive affirmation button down below. You guys have heard me say that before. I got that from Joe.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So we love you guys. If you've enjoyed it, hit the button,
Thank
share with your
you.
friends. That's the best way to support this show. And Joe, it's been an absolute pleasure. Maybe someday we'll have you back and
Mhm.
keep the conversation going.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye, everybody.
Take care.